Hey guys, and welcome back to Narcissu 2. So, let's just jump right back in. I could do nothing other than quietly eat the fries. If I were to say the truth here, if I were to truly apologize, the person who was punishing us, that person out there somewhere, would they relent? A few days later, with the sun shining directly overhead, I headed to the usual place. I had heard that this summer was a cooler summer than average, but it still seemed like it was going to be a hot day. Good morning! Setsumi, I've been waiting! For some reason, Himeko-san was again waiting in front of the hospital. The courtyard again? Nope, that's not it. But anyways, let's go. With just that, she quickly started to walk towards the outside of the hospital. Wait, where do you plan on going? Didn't I say before? The remaining 3 things. Remaining 3? At first, I couldn't remember what she was talking about. You mean, those 10 things you wanted to do before dying? Yeah! See, this is one of those remaining 3. There's something that I wanted to go check out, you see. As she spoke, Himeko-san continued walking. Already, she was quite a ways from the hospital. Just how far do you plan on going? Pretty far. Even by train. About 2 hours each way. And the doctor's permission? Of course none. I didn't really understand it well, but even if it's Himeko-san, she was a resident of the 7th floor, and I had the feeling that just up and leaving the hospital and then going that far wasn't allowed. It's fine! You don't have to make such a worried face. Well, if I'm caught outside, I'm pretty sure they'd get angry, but well, they'll overlook things just a bit. After saying that much, she started walking again. Maybe she was being serious? Certainly, if you kept going this way, you should get to the train station. And then, there was one other thing that nagged at me. By the way, you're going in that outfit? I raised the simple question of how Himeko-san was dressed in pajamas. At the least, the ride on a train, or to ride on the train. Sorry. I thought that was a bad way to go about things. Of course, just like this. Just like this. You're not going to change? It's fine, this is my uniform after all. The sun up above cast short, dark shadows. And unheeding of the midsummer morning was a lightly stepping Himeko-san. Boop doop. A while after, well, even saying that, only 5 minutes of walking, around when the number of people walking on the street slowly increased, I wasn't too familiar with things, but it seemed that she was headed towards Station A. Certainly, she had said it was 2 hours each way. But just how far was she planning on going? In just that amount of time, riding on a train, it felt like you could get quite far. Say, from the station, where are you headed? To the ocean, to be exact, to where the pineapple trees are, I guess. Pineapple trees? Words that I wasn't familiar with. I didn't know pineapple trees existed in the first place. You know, they're always in front of the large buildings. There are trees called phoenixes, right? I know those. Those, don't you think they just have to be pineapple trees? Indeed, they did look very similar, but on the other hand, pineapples don't grow on trees. So, don't you want to try cutting one and checking the inside of it? Hey! If there really were pineapple trees, it'd be huge! Was she being serious? From a common sense standpoint, it had to be a joke, but with Himeko-san simply being as she always was, it was impossible to tell. What? What's with that face? Are you making fun of me? It's not that, but I don't think it's possible. Bah! For being Professor Croquet, you sure are narrow-minded. Everything should be tested empirically, right? I think I said that right. Being a professor has nothing to do with it. And if we're looking for phoenix palms, the hospital has some. They're everywhere. Nope. If you don't test a much bigger one, it's not fun, right? I didn't really know how serious she was, but together with Himeko-san, I headed toward the station. Finally, we were just about to reach the station. Never mind that it was 10 minutes, walking under the blazing sky was unexpectedly difficult. And probably, as I had thought, Himeko-san's pajama-clad figure stood out and people walking by glanced at us. Say, we're really going? Of course! It's for that reason we've come all this... Hide! Suddenly, Himeko-san went to hide behind something. Before I knew it, I was also holding my breath in the shadow of a building. What's wrong? That is the doctor from the surgical ward. And over there, the 4th floor chief nurse is there too. Now that she mentioned it, there were faces that I recognized. I see. People working at the hospital commute from the station. At this rate, they'd find us and get angry. Himeko-san laughed in a carefree and sunny way. There was no sense of planning or anything else. In any case, surely she had been a helper before. But she didn't know this? Well, my house was in the neighborhood. I've never come by train. Same for me. But yeah, they wouldn't just add in rules for show. Rules? Nothing. It's got nothing to do with you. And what now? Well, obviously, we'll try again next time. Quickly, the decision came, even though she had been so determined to go up until now. Or perhaps if she really wanted to go. If it was after the morning rush ended, then it would be even easier riding the train without being seen. Or maybe she hadn't been serious to begin with. The sun was still high, and around now, the shops in the marketplace were opening up. Well, since we've come all the way to the station, let's make a detour. As she spoke, Himeko-san wandered among the shops along the street. Looks like, even though she gave up on riding the train, she didn't intend on going straight back to the hospital. Helplessly, I obeyed and followed after. As always, because of her pajamas, people would glance at her, or glance over. But it seemed that Himeko-san herself didn't mind one bit. And then, her feet stopped in front of one storefront. Ah, these clothes! They're nice, aren't they? She touched a number of clothes decorating the front of the shop. But they were all frilly kinds of things. However you looked, they were meant for cute girls. They didn't really seem to fit Himeko-san all that much. You like these kinds? As if! I don't have such girly interests. I had thought she would say that, but then she spread the clothing in her hands before me. Yeah, it suits you, Setsumi. Me? Well, you're always in sailor uniform, you see. But I thought that maybe this sort of thing would suit you. Hey, should I buy this for you, this one piece? But you don't have to be polite, it's a present from One-san. I don't want it. Would have been a lie. For some reason, or for someone who only had a single sailor uniform, it was a very tempting proposition. And Himeko-san's clothes? I don't need them. This is my uniform after all. With that, she pointed at her own pajamas. Then I'm fine too. Oh? It's not like you have to go along with me. See, you can still choose. While I waited to reply, or wanted to reply, I swallowed my words. It was said in her usual bright tone, but the words, "can still choose." At that, I realized the very heavy meaning in them. No, I'm fine. What a pity. And I thought it'd definitely suit you. Well, if you change your mind, just say, I'll buy it for you anytime. After that, we wandered around in front of the station a while, ate ice cream together, and then headed back to the hospital. As we found similar clothes in other shops, she continued to say she'd buy them for me. In the end, I kept refusing. Oh, jeez. The daytime had been so hot and hazy. But now in the huge sky, the face of the moon peeked out. As usual, after eating dinner, I returned to my room and relaxed. By the window, washed and drying on a hanger, was the sailor uniform. While gazing at it, I suddenly thought about the time I had gone to school. Right now, my health was good, so one could forget, but in reality, I was someone who was admitted in and out of hospitals. Already over 2 years had passed since I've been away from the place called school. In that time, I hadn't once thought about wanting clothes other than pajamas. There wasn't even any pressure from such a need. But today, just a bit my heart swayed. Perhaps it would have been better had I admitted I wanted the clothes. But Himeko-san herself was stubbornly in pajamas, and being the only one to get new clothing made me feel bad. Besides that, no matter where Himeko-san was in her pajamas, she was dignified. Compared to that, I always felt somehow sorry. Like I'm somehow doing something embarrassing. I can't help it. Or maybe Mother, who had stopped getting manicures and red in her hands, or Father, who continued the long commutes in the same suit. If they saw me happily wearing cute clothing, perhaps to both of them it would be a joyous thing. But that, for me, I think would have been difficult. More than saying I hate fries, it felt that difficult. Okay, next chapter, Catholic. The cicadas continued their crying, and then a few days after, before I noticed, it was already entering mid-August. Nothing had particularly changed, and as always, I was headed to Himeko-san's place. Setsumi-san. Hearing a voice I recognized, I turned around, and the girl I had met before was there. Certainly you were Himeko-san's... Yes, I'm her younger sister Chihiro. As always, she spoke in a calm, well-mannered, gentle way. Unlike Himeko-san, if she, Chihiro-san, were said to be a helper or a Catholic, one wouldn't be surprised. Today, unlike the usual apron form seen at the hospital, she was in a white, cute one-piece dress that I thought was somehow her. Are you perhaps going there from here? Is Chihiro-san also? No, I have a place to go to first, so... Ah, that's right. If it's alright, Setsumi-san, would you come along with me? I didn't know what was going on, but I continued walking behind Chihiro-san. Under the blazing sky, the two of us walked side by side along the street. Unlike Himeko-san, Chihiro-san spoke rarely, but somehow, she was a person with an air about her, where just from being with her one could feel at ease. And then, a little before the hospital, she turned left at an intersection where I normally didn't go. And at some point, as the area turned into a quiet residential neighborhood, look! It's there on the bend! The rolling sound of bells. What appeared before me was a large church. From long ago, I knew there had been a church nearby, but this was the first time I had ever come to it. And by the way, the white building next to it is my house. Saying that, what she pointed out was a pretty house that gave off a serene feeling. The tall ivy-covered fence gave off a western atmosphere. It was probably obvious, but this being Chihiro-san's home meant that it was also Himeko-san's home. And then, following her urgings, I stepped into the church. The first church I'd entered. Streaming from the windows, dazzling bright light and vividly colored stained glass. It was the first time I'd visited here, and I felt it was very beautiful, peaceful. Was that the word? The polar opposite of glaring gaudiness might have felt like this. But there's no one around, is there? Yes, because at this time no one comes. With just that answer, Chihiro-san approached what looked like the altar. Then, from her pocket, she took out what resembled Buddhist prayer beads, and quietly brought her hands together. This was that thing they called prayer? On TV, I'd seen that the fingers were folded together, but this was like praying at the temple on New Year's, with just the hands brought together. And the things she took out of her pocket, at first, I had thought they were Buddhist beads, but looking carefully, it was a rosary. To me, everything was so fresh and new. This was, of course, the first time I'd seen any of this. Say, would you pray with me too? Me? It's alright? Yes, it's not like offering a prayer requires some special rite. But what should I pray for? That's for each person their freedom. Once again, bringing her hands together, Chihiro-san quietly closed her eyes. Imitating her, I put my hands together in the same way. In the soundless place, closing my eyes, it felt everything dissolved to nothingness. However, I felt it wasn't a fear instilling dark and emptiness, but a clear white that spread everywhere. But what in the world should I pray for, I wonder? Chihiro-san said I was free to choose, but for me, what I should be praying for was a difficult thing. Next to myself, I could hear the small whispers of Chihiro-san's voice, so small I couldn't make out the words, but I definitely felt she was praying for Himeko-san. By that so very seriously praying figure, I felt my reasoning wasn't that far off. Once again, my eyes opened after some time. Well, just 30 seconds worth. When I looked next to me, Chihiro-san also seemed to be finishing up her prayer. Say, Chihiro-san is a Catholic person, right? Yes, that's right. Well, Catholic person is a bit of a strange way of saying it. Then your One-san, Himeko-san, is different? One-chan says that she's a fake Catholic, but denies it. But, as far as I know, she's a very devoted Christian. In her usual kind of way of speaking, she answered. From the Himeko-san that I knew, I couldn't imagine it, but none other than the younger sister, Chihiro-san, said so. So it must be as she said. Well, shall we leave? Chihiro-san walked toward the entrance that we had come from. When I walked after in the same way, suddenly her feet stopped and she turned around. Ah, that's right! Setsumi-san, face this way! When I wondered what she was going to do, she once again placed her hands together. May the bountiful blessings and grace of the Lord be upon you. For my sake? Of course, I'm not a priest, so it's just a sentiment. After that, we left the church, and in front of the hospital we parted. For me, it had all been a new experience. Churches and Catholics, I don't really know much about them. All I knew was that I had reconfirmed that Chihiro-san was a very kind and good person. And also, the Himeko-san that acted so coldly towards her was apparently a devoted Catholic like her. The bell on the elevator rung. Slightly late, I came to the usual place, but for some reason I couldn't find Himeko-san in the hospital room or even the lounge. I wonder where she went. Ah, if you're looking for Himeko-san, she's in the courtyard. As I peered around, a nurse passing by spoke to me. It's hot, so tell her not to overdo things. Okay. When I looked, Himeko-san was in the middle of watering the flowers. Morning, Setsumi! It's hot today too, isn't it? As she spoke, she held a hose single-handedly and was spraying the flowers with vigor. However, her outfit was the usual pajamas and slippers. And then, maybe to defend against heat stroke, or sunstroke, on her head she wore a straw hat. That image was oddly comical and yet mysteriously seemed just like Himeko-san. To that Himeko-san, I pointed to the place we planted bulbs the other day. Have shoots come out already? It's impossible for it to happen that soon. Then she showed me with a carefree smile. She had been called a devoted Catholic, but for her to have an air like Chihiro-san had praying in the church, at least for me, it was unimaginable. The wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom. Just like the crocus, it shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing. Know it? They're words from the book of Isaiah. I shook my head. I didn't really know, but it was probably from some kind of scripture. Just now, as I was having that thought, Himeko-san's sudden words surprised me. And then while I was thinking about that... Phew, it's hot today, isn't it? From somewhere came a nurse. Someone I hadn't seen before. It seemed like someone from a floor I didn't know. Thank you very much, Himeko-san. Ah, while I was at it, I watered the other flowers too. So, which is better? I was thinking of taking some. For which floor? The third floor's X-ray waiting room. Then a potted plant would be fine, right? As she spoke, she scooped up a number of yellow and white pansies and moved them to a plastic bag. Thank you very much. I'll be going then. Taking the plastic bag into her hands, the nurse disappeared into the building once more. On leaving, her hands made a cross. Maybe that nurse was also Catholic? And I didn't really understand it, but it seemed that this flower bed Himeko-san could plant and pick as she pleased. I believed not because she was the resident of the 7th floor, but because in the hospital she was well known. The nurse just now is another acquaintance? Yes, there are lots of other acquaintances too. Being a former helper I had heard about, but did this come about just from that alone? Thinking about how this was a Christian hospital, and then how she had been called a devoted Catholic earlier, I had a feeling there was a link. But I am all out of time for this episode, guys. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up down below. And I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye!